150 kilometers south of Suez, Egypt, along the western coast of the Red Sea, is Wadi al-Jarf. This region is part of Egypt's eastern desert, approximately 220,000 square kilometers of the Sahara, that conceals innumerable mysteries lost to the sands of time.
Around 95% of Egypt's population lives within 20 kilometers of the Nile River basin, while the rest of the country is virtually uninhabited because of the hostile desert environment, Wadi al-Jarf included.
A large team of marine archaeologists were investigating a remote section of the Red Sea coast at Wadi al-Jarf when they discovered something strange in the water.
At first sight, it looks sort of like a landform running parallel to the shoreline, and at low tide, it becomes even more visible.
It could be a shoal, which are ridges that form where a current deposits material that builds up over time and creates a shallower area.
But shoals are usually made up of sand or other fine sediment. However, this formation at Wadi al-Jarf appears to be made of rock.
The marine archaeologists continued their investigation underwater and discovered that the formation was L-shaped, stretching about 160 meters east, then turning southeast and extending for roughly another 120 meters.
This is a huge structure. Whatever it is could have been on land when it was constructed, and then over the years, erosion and rising sea levels ate into the coast, and it ended up submerged.
Maybe it's the ruins of an ancient palace that sat close to the shore, or a military outpost for defending against enemies coming from the sea.
But this is a desolate area. There's no evidence that there was ever a city here or anything even worth defending.
As the team explored beneath the water, they made another surprising discovery. Limestone blocks on the seafloor, all with a hole cut into them.
They're about the size of a microwave and have been shaped into a trapezoid with rounded corners, so they have to be man-made. But what are they?
The team moved the excavations onto the shore at Wadi al-Jarf and unearthed further evidence of ancient activity. The ruins of two large stone structures, about 30 meters in length and 8 to 12 meters in width.
The building seemed to have 5 or 6 rooms, separated by low walls constructed with limestone and pebbles, the same materials used to build the underwater structure. Another 99 limestone blocks with holes cut into them were found. But unlike the ones discovered on the seafloor, these seem to have traces of rope attached to them.
So the limestone blocks found at Wadi al-Jarf are most likely anchors. The ones found on the seabed probably fell off boats, and the ones found at the collection on land were probably stored in the 2 buildings that were discovered.
Given the L shape and the presence of anchors, it's likely the underwater structure was a pier, which also would have served as a breakwater, protecting moored ships from the ravages of the Red Sea.
Considering all the evidence found in the vicinity of the pier, it looks like there must have been significant maritime activity on this part of the coast.
In 1823, a British explorer had discovered tunnels around 6 kilometers inland from the location of the pier, but nobody had investigated them further. Interested in a possible connection, the team ventured to the site.
There are 30 long, narrow tunnels carved into the hillside. They average 15 to 20 meters in length, 3 meters in width, and 2.5 meters in height. Clearly they're man-made, and they're spacious enough for human activity. But what were they for?
Exploring the tunnel complex further, the team discovered something strange. hundreds of pieces of wood.
Several pieces of the wood are thought to be parts of oars, and there are also lengths of rope and dozens of jars. So this whole system of tunnels looks like it must have been used as a storage area for boat parts and supplies for voyages.
But maybe this tunnel system was used for more than just storage and supplies. It's entirely possible that whole boats were assembled and stored here.
All signs point to Wadi al-Jarf being a major seafaring hub, which is kind of strange, considering that population centers at the time were hundreds of kilometers across the desert.
And there's no evidence of any infrastructure or extensive human presence that you typically find at a busy port site. Why would the ancient Egyptians build this harbor complex in the middle of nowhere?
In Egypt, a discovery in the waters of the Red Sea had sparked interest from archaeologists who drew a potential connection to a series of tunnels 6 kilometers inland. Further exploring the tunnels, the team made an astonishing discovery that may be one of the most important in the storied history of Egyptian archaeology.
There are around 800 pieces of inscribed papyri, and most are very well preserved because of the dry desert environment and also from being in the tunnels where they were sheltered from the elements.
The archaeologists set about analyzing and translating the papyri and found that one of the best preserved pieces made reference to the year after the 13th cattle count, approximately 2570 BCE, during Pharaoh Khufu's reign. Famously, Khufu's tomb lies within the largest pyramid in Egypt, the Great Pyramid of Giza, an architectural feat commissioned by the pharaoh himself.
The cattle count was a way for Egyptian officials to collect taxes based on assessing the value of a farmer's crops and livestock. They traveled from place to place every 2 years and quite literally counted cows.
If the papyri were written after the 13th cattle count of Khufu's reign, then that means that this was the 27th year of his time in power, and they date back almost 4,600 years.
These are the oldest inscribed papyri ever found, and the harbor at Wadi al-Jarf is the oldest of its kind.
Their remarkable age is even noted by the Guinness Book of World Records. Further analysis of the papyri not only revealed the age of the harbor site, including the pier originally discovered, but surprising details about what transpired there during Khufu's reign.
There are two basic categories of documentation. The first is a sort of accounting ledger detailing deliveries to the area. The second, and by far the more intriguing of the two, seems to be the daily diary of a man named Merer.
He appears to have been a bureaucrat of some kind who was in charge of a team of men ferrying goods throughout Egypt.
At one point, the journal mentions a stop at Tura, a town known for its limestone quarry. Merer describes loading their boat with stone and taking it up the Nile River. So it seems likely that they were building something. But what exactly was it?
Merer's diary also references reporting to the noble Ankaf, who was thought to be the half-brother of Khufu and a powerful figure within the pharaoh's inner circle.
It's long been suspected that Ankaf oversaw the building of the Great Pyramid at Giza. We know that Tura limestone was used for the pyramid's outer layer. So Merer's diary provides a glimpse into the logistical and engineering feats required to build one of the wonders of the world.
One thing that has puzzled experts over the years is how the ancient Egyptians got the massive stones to Giza to build the pyramids. The Nile is several miles away, and it would have required a Herculean effort to transport them overland.
According to Merer's account, the stones were taken from Tura directly to Giza by boat. which supports the popular theory that the Egyptians redirected parts of the Nile, probably using canals, and constructed a major port close to the pyramid complex at Giza.
But if Merer and his men were involved in the building of the Great Pyramid, then why was his diary found over 200 kilometers away at Wadi El Jarf?
Wadi Al Jarf is about 50 kilometers across the Red Sea from the Sinai Peninsula, the location of Egypt's mining operations. Some experts believe that Merer's responsibilities were more focused on acquiring and delivering materials like copper and turquoise that were needed to make the tools used to build the Great Pyramid.
So the harbor was probably built to secure easy access to the resources needed for these huge construction projects. And despite this important role, Wadi Al Jarf was probably only in use for a few decades.
Why the harbor was ultimately abandoned is still up for debate, but the common belief is that it may have been shut down at the end of Khufu's reign, having served its purpose of helping to build the Great Pyramid.
Maybe for his final act, as operations at the harbor came to an end, Merer simply tossed the papyri into the tunnel and sealed the entrance, symbolically closing the book on this chapter of ancient Egyptian history, only for it to be opened again an astounding 4,600 years later.
This was a monumental discovery. Merer's diary provides the only first-hand account of the logistical and engineering achievements that went into one of the most fabled construction projects in world history.